It's January the 23rd, after the inauguration and all the festivities. So I thought I'd do an update on the situation with a little bit of a focus on the Senate, which I think is now the strategic thing. The Democrats formally have control of all branches of government, but of course the Senate is a very narrow majority. Of basically the vice president plus the 50 Democrats versus the 50 Republicans and no vice president. So, okay. Now, by the way, if you like these videos, remember to subscribe, and if you want to get notified, you can click the bell there if you want to do that. I don't know if you need to, or just check back from time to time. And I'd like to get more followers out here. I haven't gained any new ones in a week or two, so it'd be good to see a few more. Okay, here's the thing. So McConnell is apparently come close to negotiating a 50-50 split, which I think the deal is that you get equal members on every committee, which is really good. But I think if the committee's tied, the bill will still voted out to the floor. I think that's the way that worked back in the Daschle, Trent Lott days. But and so that's probably better than having one Democrat majority. Of course, Mitch McConnell is pushing for a commitment not to end the filibuster. And of course, since that's kind of the nuclear weapon that the Democrats have here, they're obviously not going to give that up. And the more I think about it, I doubt they're going to formally give it up. And also, even if they said they would, they could always change their mind, couldn't they? I mean, there's no way to really inscribe it in law short of a constitutional amendment. So, and that's not going to happen. So essentially, here's what I think. I'm just going to give kind of my advice. Great, not never having been a member of any legislative body, but but I'm going to do it anyhow. What I think is that, and I've been saying this earlier, the key thing for McConnell to do at this point is to tread sort of lightly on this subject. It's obvious right now the Democrats don't have the 50 votes in their conference to end the filibuster, or they'd probably just do it. Maybe not, because it's still going to be, well, it's a technical detail that I think the public doesn't fully appreciate the significance of. But it is absolutely overwhelmingly the most important thing right now. And so it's kind of, which I've been kind of hammering that home in all the videos from the beginning of these practically. Because it's the key to passing everything they want if they can keep their own conference together. So what I would recommend is this: is the hold back on using the filibuster, except for the most strategic issues. And those strategic issues are things that fundamentally change the system. New states, that would be Democrat, of course, maybe, immigration, citizenship issues beyond DACA. I mean, I think we'd be willing to do something on path to citizenship for DACA people, but not the rest, maybe, or delay it for a long time or whatever. And let's see, what else could be, major rights issues about First, Second, Fourth Amendment and so forth, things like that, I think are items that we'd want to be really hard over on about where we would use the filibuster. Where we probably wouldn't use it is just some quibble over, do the blue states get an extra $200 or $300 billion or things of that sort. Because yes, it's a waste of money, but it's better to waste money than waste the country. Okay? That's the situation we're in. That's why we pushed so hard on the Georgia seats and lost. But given where we are, we lost them, and so now we're down to counting on people like Joe Manchin. I understand Angus King may be another one. He's an independent from Maine who caucuses with the Democrats, but he's concerned that in the future, what if they did all this stuff and the Republicans managed to get a simple majority of 50-50. Or now it might be 54, but 52, or whatever it would be in the future, and did get a majority with the vice president and just started slashing all kind of programs the Democrats like. See, that could be a whole. And if the Supreme Court is a fluid thing where you can only add a few more judges to get your own, and you can put the most radical ones from your own point of view on. You get what I'm getting at. So prudence says that stability, some of the more moderate Democrats probably don't want to go there. And also it'll reduce their own personal power, because if you're the one person that can really make things happen one way or the other, a lot of people might be really nice to you for your bill, you know. So, at any rate, so that's I think the situation. So my advice is to McConnell is to tread lightly but tread. In other words, and also it might be interesting to see if we could get one of those gangs of the Senate like we used to have, a group of people who would oppose the use of oppose the nuclear option against the filibuster, but at the same time would do something along the lines of, you know, um, maybe holding back the use of the filibuster except for the most strategic issues. I mean, that seems to me to be the general situation here. We can't, what we can't do with this without grave risk is to try to completely sabotage the Biden agenda. On the other hand, in my opinion, the Biden agenda may be sabotaging the Democrat Party anyhow. I mean, he's already thrown about nearly 20,000 potential jobs out of work in his first day in office. I mean, he's doing all kind of really radical, things. Maybe not quite as radical as the most radical, but they're pretty radical. And I think that the public in general isn't really that happy about all this stuff. I mean, we'll see how his approval ratings trend over the next several days once we get some real data on it. But I tend to think that his honeymoon may be stifled, plus their insistence on this impeachment trial of an ex-president. That probably isn't going to help them out any either. So my thinking is that is to slowly but surely wear them down. I mean, a lot of incidental things such as putting the National Guard troops out in the garage in the cold and things like that probably gradually play against their popularity. Plus the fact that, let's face it, Joe's nothing to look at. I mean, the guy's semi-incoherent. I understand he was actually muttering something like, "What am I signing?" He was signing one of his executive orders the other day, which gets the feeling that he's being managed by somebody, and we can debate who that is. My guess, personally, is his wife. Everybody seems to miss that possibility. They seem to think it's Kamala or Obama or somebody. But my guess is maybe it's his wife. I mean, she's a political wife. She probably has strong opinions, and she has her husband to sign those documents. So I don't know. We'll see if that turns out to be the case, or is it a couple of key advisors? I don't know. Somebody's pulling the strings here, obviously. But at any rate, I think that that's the path forward, I think, for the Republicans, is to try to avoid blowing up the filibuster by being too negative on every aspect of the Biden agenda. I mean, there are some extreme things they want to do, the Green New Deal, but I think Joe Manchin doesn't want to support the Green New Deal, so he can be our 51st vote to block getting rid of the filibuster on that one. Statehood things, I'm not sure how popular, bringing in new states are really. I mean, there is, as far as D.C., it's possible that could get ruled unconstitutional, but I wouldn't want to count on the Supreme Court there. Now, on the other hand, in general, I would want to say that I think as a strategy, I mean, I'm glad to hear that Texas is already filing a lawsuit against this open borders policy announced the other day. And I think in general, I would like to see the companies and the workers both behind the Keystone pipeline file lawsuits separately on that. Hopefully one of the two will get a favorable judge. I mean, the whole trick on the lawsuit is getting the right judge, obviously. And so, I mean, Parler found that out the other day when they got the wrong judge. This is the kind of thing you need to do, is there's a lot of executive orders, and to whatever degree we can find any procedural grounds to challenge it in court, like they did on Trump, by all means, we need to get groups out there doing that, to try to slow them down using the courts. That's if we can push a lot of the focus of slowing these people down in the court system, and just as it kind of winds its way through the court system, regardless of what the ultimate outcome is, you achieve a lot of your goals without actually invoking the filibuster and forcing a showdown on that subject. So those are the things I could think of. And I guess finally, if we could convince old Joe Manchin to switch parties, that would be a good idea. But I don't think he's going to. For some reason, he has deep emotional Democrat roots, I guess. I don't. What he has in common with AOC, I don't know. But then I guess you could ask, what does Lisa Murkowski have in common with Donald Trump either? So it's one of those kind of things, and we'll hope that we can. Anyway, that's essentially the strategy I recommend for the Republican leadership and Mitch McConnell. I think if they do that, there's still a chance we can limp through this year of living dangerously and hopefully gain back majority in the Senate in the next election. That's one of the things we need to do there. And of course, I really. I'm a little bit appalled at all this negativism. I mean, everybody has to. I mean, we need to focus on that we're in deep stuff, we're deep trouble here, and we got to really work together now. I mean, this is not the time to start pointing fingers at you're more Trump or anti-Trump than this other person or whatever. I mean, for the moment, Trump is peacefully resting and recuperating down in Mar-a-Lago, and he's probably thinking about what he wants to do next, and we'll have to wait and see what that is. And of course, as always, I want to point out that leadership, absolutely, we do not want Trump to be convicted. We want to hold the number of Republicans voting to convict to the lowest minimum possible. I suppose I can think of a couple of 3 people that probably can't resist voting that way. But the bottom line is, again, as I said before, Trump is innocent of what he's being charged with. He did not he did not inspire the sedition. And in fact, we're increasingly learning that these are some radical fringe militia groups and the like, perhaps even aided by a few other people or just whatever, that organized and planned this before Trump ever made the speech. And I think that this was obviously what actually happened was probably the last thing he wanted. It totally destroyed the plan he did have, which, by the way, wouldn't have worked anyhow. There was no way he was going to win the presidency as of January the 6th. But because the system had already chosen. Regardless of what the people chose, the system had made its rulings, and at that point, it's not going to reverse it. So, but at any rate, I still want to say that actually rubbing salt in the wounds of the Trump voter is not the way to unify the party. And I think that just like they want to keep ending the filibuster as a weapon against us, let's keep the possibility of Trump as a weapon against them too. I mean. And also, I think that I would hope that Trump really would pursue this whole thing of election fraud in a more serious way along the Peter Navarro document rather than the Kraken lawsuit. I don't believe it was an electronic steal. I think it was, as I like to call it, the old-fashioned way, just a lot of people voting that shouldn't have been voting. And remember, it's also due to the fact it was a very close vote. If it had been a lot bigger margin, or if that 4.5% margin the Democrats had been spread more evenly throughout the country, there wouldn't even be this issue. But since it is concentrated the way it is, we could have won electoral victory. But that's my view on it. I disagree with both the viewpoint. It was a big advantage for Trump. It wasn't. Or that everything claiming that was any irregularities that were significant is also inaccurate. There were significant irregularities, in my opinion. Anyway, but I will close this now and not let it go on forever. But I think that we're not over yet, but this is a year of living dangerously, and we will have to see how things play out. This is sort of like defusing a bomb. You have to be very careful here, or it'll blow up on all of us. We have to be very careful. But at the same time, we need to have resistance where we can get by with it. And that's basically the way I see it. Until next time.